When you walk through the remote jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, you will come across magnificent stone temples and pyramids hidden by trees. Maya civilization was one of the most advanced societies in the ancient world, with its incredible development in art and architecture. From the 3rd century onwards, the Maya population increased exponentially, and so did the number of monuments and buildings. It reached its zenith in the 8th century, and then suddenly collapsed in the 9th century. Maya kings had left beautiful hieroglyphs on stones, that praised their own prosperity and glory, but those written records ceased to exist after the 9th century. The contrast between their magnificence and the silence fascinates all of us. What were the last days of the Maya like? How did the civilization collapse? The last days of the Maya civilization are characterized by two phenomena: intense warfare and severe drought. Maya kings left vivid depictions of warfare on stone monuments, to boast their conquests and glory. Deciphering these inscriptions unveiled, that wars became more intense and frequent towards the time of the collapse. Pieces of other archaeological evidence such as excavated fortresses, also support this theory. Based on radiocarbon dating of lake sediments, climate researchers reconstructed the climate cycles that the Maya people experienced. The Maya area went through drought periods, at intervals of about 208 years, probably caused by small variations in the sun's radiation. Researchers conclude that the Maya area enjoyed wetter climate after 250 BC, suitable conditions for agriculture. However, around 760 AD, the worst drought in the last 7,000 years began, peaking around the year 800 AD. Climate conditions have corresponded with the rise and fall of the Maya, so there must be some connection between them. However, researchers warn us not to jump to the simple and naive conclusion that their collapse was caused by warfare and drought. They could be part of the reasons, but those alone aren't enough to fully explain their downfall. Warfare in particular may be a symptom of other essential factors of collapse, rather than the cause. Just as Japanese culture has been dependent on rice farming, the prosperity of the Maya civilization has been sustained by corn. Corn we can find in a supermarket today is entirely different from its ancestors that were growing wild in Mesoamerica thousands of years ago. While corn today bears hundreds of kernels per year, the original corn species produced only around 10. Mayan people had improved the breed of corn by selectively cultivating individuals convenient for farming. Around 1000 BC, corn evolved into a form that we are familiar with today, establishing its position as a staple food for Mayan people. Along with the artificial improvement, the Maya civilization also figured out efficient farming practices to increase production, and cooking methods to improve nutritional value. The Maya's population explosion from 250 AD onwards was supported by these agricultural innovations. From the 7th century, however, the health of the Maya citizens suddenly deteriorated. Signs of disease and malnutrition appear in many of the skeletal remains found at archaeological sites dated this period. They were victims of their own success. Their agricultural success led to the population increase and the cultural advancement, resulting in massive consumption of resources. Eventually, there was a crash between available resources and human demands on them. Around the 9th century, many of the Mayan cities became unable to sustain themselves, and fighting became fierce for limited resources. One of the important lessons from the Mayans' downfall is that societal collapse is a complex phenomenon with various factors. Though there were some major causes, their collapse cannot be attributed to a single exclusive cause. Probably the most significant factor is the mismatch between available resources and resource consumption. As the population grew and cultural standards improved, the Maya began to consume more resources than the environment could provide. In addition, they cut forests down to expand farmlands, and to gain timber and firewood. Deforestation led to massive soil erosion, and agricultural production drastically decreased, further worsening the scarcity of resources. Warfare became even more intense over limited resources. Increased violence created a vicious cycle, where war required wasting resources which further intensified fighting for less supply. The drought around the 8th century delivered the final blow to the society already weakened by multiple factors. This was not the first climate change the Maya had ever lived through. However, they no longer had any room to withstand this dry period, because they had already been exhausted by overpopulation, environmental destruction, and warfare. Some researchers mention other factors, such as external invasions, and decreased trade activities with neighboring societies. The Maya collapse was the result of complex interaction of multiple variables, and can never be explained by any single factor. The intellectual virtue required of us is to exercise caution, in not immediately embracing simple and easy explanations. The last question is about the leadership of the Maya kings. What could they have been thinking, as the society was winding down? Why did the kings fail to solve these seemingly obvious problems undermining their society? Maya kings acted so as to accelerate collapse, rather than to prevent it, partly because their status depended on their putting up bigger monuments and winning against rival states. They were trapped in a competitive spiral, such that any king who put up smaller monuments to spare the forests would have been scorned and lost power. Likewise, leaders of modern for-profit companies are usually evaluated based on short-term indicators. Their performance is often measured by growth rates and profit margins during their term. Even if a CEO personally holds a strong interest in solving long-term issues of society, he or she would face a significant dilemma about whether to risk their own career success for the greater good of society. Furthermore, leaders need to have a particular courage to work on a potential problem like environmental issues. They have to expose themselves to criticism and ridicule for acting before it becomes obvious to everyone that some action is necessary. However, such criticism might be worth enduring. Leaders of the collapsed societies in history couldn't secure their own interests in the long run. They merely bought themselves the privilege of being the last people to starve to death.